Hello and welcome to the Success Showcase. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin from the Modern Observer Group. And with me, as always, is Chip Janiszewski from the Happiness and Success GPS. Chip, how you doing?
Good. How are you, Eric?
I'm doing fantastic. We're wrapping up Halloween and heading into Thanksgiving season.
Yep. Had a nice windy, rainy thing. The leaves are falling off the trees. Still nice, though. But, yep, we're looking at Thanksgiving in a couple of weeks.
Yep. And, of course, we always advise people to be thankful for what they have. And today, we're going to go back to the bookshelf with the Success Showcase Book Club. And this episode, we're looking at Take the Stairs.
Yes, this book was written before escalators and elevators.
Well, no. That's actually the focus of it, is that you shouldn't take the escalator. You should take the stairs.
Yeah, this is a book that I read for the first time and talked about way back in 2012. So it's not a new book, and I think you're going to bring up that some of the links in the book aren't working right now as far as that goes, but you can still find a lot of stuff on there. But really what it's all about is that success is all about doing things that aren't easy, but that you have to do. And the bottom line is that people don't ordinarily do these things. So the successful people do things that aren't easy. The people who don't ordinarily do those are not as successful. So it's really all about self-discipline.
Yeah, self-discipline is the focus of the book. It's a fantastic book. And yes, as Chip mentioned, the book came out in 2012. And if you're going to go out and read the book, there are several parts in the book that they tell you about web resources that are online. However, those links no longer seem to work. So the book itself is well worth the read. Just don't worry about the web resources.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about 7 principles too. And in the back of the book, there's a nice little quick reference section that has like 3 different points, 3 exercises to do and action items and so on and so forth. So it's a really great book. It's only 200 pages long, and highly recommend that you pick up a copy or listen to it on Audible after we get done with this podcast.
Yes. One of the things that I really liked about this is that it talks right from the beginning about the fact that so many people are enamored with the law of attraction, and they forget that the law of attraction is just the starting point. And if you want anything to happen, you actually have to take action and do something to make your success happen.
In fact, that's the last principle.
It's the last principle, but he talks about it right at the beginning of the book. So everything is involved in this. And it's really key because there are so many books out there that focus on the law of attraction. And when you go into the implementation, you find out that that's not enough. You actually have to plan and move forward and take action and do the hard things that people don't necessarily want to do.
Yeah, and he sets it up nicely. He talks about our procrastination, Nation, which is basically the lack of self-discipline that a lot of us have. He talks about that in the workplace. He says the average worker wastes 2 hours a day, which back in 2012 numbers translated to $10,000 per employee per year, which is a whole lot of money.
It is, and I'm sure it's more now. And it becomes this way because a procrastination is so easy. And we have this habit of looking for the easy way out. And that's what he talks about when he explains the title of the book, is that he was at a mall and he's looking, and there's a packed escalator with people are lined up to take the escalator. Right next to it is a flight of stairs, and there's nobody on the stairs. We've become conditioned to look for the easy way out and take that. And that's not how success works.
Yeah. So, I mean, the first thing that he starts with, I mean, what he did was really principle number one. He sacrificed, which is the paradox principle. He sacrificed the convenience of not having to walk with walking. And what this says is that paradox is a statement or a group of statements that leads to a contradiction or a situation which, if true, defies logic or reason. And right off the bat, he comes up with different examples about these different principles. And I love the example that he talked about out in Colorado where he used to live. It's one of the few places on earth that has both cattle and buffalo. And they're right at the base of the Rocky Mountains. And the storms normally comes from the west over the Rocky Mountains. And what happens is when the storm comes over the Rocky Mountains, the cattle start running with the storm, which prolongs their agony and pain just by running with the storm. And what most people do is just go with the flow, hoping things are going to get better. Whereas the buffalo, once they see that coming and it comes over the mountain, they turn directly into it and run right through the storm. Quick pain, but they're done a lot quicker and they have a quick gain on there. And this is what he talks about is that pain today um, outweighs logic in a lot of ways. So it's the pain paradox. Emotions outweigh logic a lot. And it's our emotions and our feelings and that kind of thing that get us into trouble because we just kind of float with them. And that's why things don't happen.
Right. I mean, using that example, people are very prone to trying to avoid the pain. And very often we find ourselves in situations that if you just face the pain, it's over quickly. And when you try to avoid it, you actually end up prolonging it. When I was reading the book and he was giving the buffalo and cows example, the first thing that popped into my mind was a Band-Aid. People like peel it off, tentatively and slowly because they don't want it to hurt when they pull it off. But the fact of the matter is, when you yank it off quickly, it hurts a lot less. So you have to be willing to accept that pain and move through it.
Yeah, he talks about the pain paradox of decision, and it states short term easy leads to long term difficult, while short term difficult leads to long term easy. And that's exactly an example of that. Just get it done with, and it's done.
All right. I don't remember who said it, but there was an old saying, if you find an easy road, it probably doesn't lead anywhere. And it's true. We have to make the sacrifice and accept that things are not going to be easy. And he talks about, work-life balance and how people tend to think that, oh, well, it means, you're spending the same amount of time and the same amount of effort. And that's not really true about a work-life balance. There are times when you have to head full steam into work and plow through that. And then later on, you get the benefits of that and you get to spend the time with your family and your life. So work-life balance really becomes a long-term prospect rather than, well, I don't want to work so many hours because I want to be able to spend time with my family. It's a matter of sacrificing one or the other in the short term so you can spend more time with it on the long term.
Yeah, and that kind of takes us to the next principle, which is committing to doing something, the buy-in principle. And what the commitment principle is all about, it's the emotional energy of making a decision. It's greater than the physical energy of executing the decision from time to time. And he used the example where somebody walked into the men's room and saw another person staring at his $5 bill that's in the urinal. And he says, oh, wow, that's a tough decision. What are you going to do? And that person who was staring at it takes out a 50 and drops it in there. And then he says he's going to take both of them out because it's a lot stronger decision. So the guy says, what are you doing? And he says, well, come on, don't you think I'd stick my hand in there for just $5? So everybody's got like a breaking point. And that's really what this is about. It's emotional energy of doing something.
Right.
Instead of trying, it's doing.
And I love that example because it shows, you know, he's not just making the decision to go in after it. He's actually doubling down on that decision, actually 10 times, down. But because when we make decisions, very often it's like, well, is that worth it? Is it not? And if the value of something becomes much greater, the decision becomes easier. It's like, oh, well, of course it's worth that.
Yeah, there comes a breaking point where the commitment's about asking yourself, how will I? And it all of a sudden switches to should I. I mean, it switches from should I to how will I. The bottom line is once it becomes urgent enough, he used another example of, I guess when they were young, a ball flew over the fence into somebody's yard who everybody was scared of, and they figured out a way to get it out, whereas before nobody would even think about doing that kind of thing. But that's what this is about. Instead of saying should I, he talks, I like this term, should heads.
Yes.
And basically it's just how will I? The bottom line is you take a look at it. If it's really worth doing, just make the decision to do it now instead of procrastinating on it.
Right. The real key to this can come down to one word. You have to change your decision process from will I do this to how will I do this? And making that commitment to move forward, well, quite frankly, that decision right there is more than most people make, which is why there are so many people stuck in dead-end jobs, struggling to make ends meet. When you make that decision and you commit, that's the first step to success. You're no longer asking, well, will I be a success? You've already decided you're going to be a success. Now you're figuring out how.
Yep, and one of the best ways to really enforce this principle is moving on to the next principle. It's focus. It's the magnification principle. And the bottom line is focus is doing something, and focus is really, really power. He talks about 3 different types of procrastination, which is just classic, consciously delaying what we know that we should be doing, and then creative avoidance, which is very dangerous because the bottom line is it's unconsciously filling the day with menial work where you look like you're busy and you're getting absolutely nothing done. You're just being busy doing nothing. And then the third type is priority dilution, which these are mostly high performing people who know what their goals are, but nonetheless, they allow their attention to shift to other things. So, I mean, focus is really, really important. And the words focus is power really describes the whole thing.
Yes, focus is a crucial element. And in fact, focus is so important that when we created our Biznetics system, focus is the second element to get, to reach success. I love that he talks about the process of 212 degrees. And for those of you who are not familiar with this, water boils at 212 degrees Fahrenheit. At 211 degrees, it's just water. At 212 degrees, the difference of 1 degree, it becomes steam. Steam can then be used to power engines. So the difference between a pot full of water and powering an engine is 1 degree. And it's so important because it points out that when you're focusing, all it really takes is one little step, and each step becomes that powerful.
Yeah, and he talks a lot about focusing on thoughts because thoughts are our biggest enemy. He talks about Mr. M on our shoulder, who's Mr. Mediocrity, and he's Mr. Negative, and that's that inner voice that's always in you that's complaining and seeing the negative side of things and so on and so forth. And the bottom line is we talk about this all the time as far as positive mindset. Mr. Mediocrity, the negative side of things, cannot stand up against positivity. And so he talks about things like